Democratic Congressman Troy Carter of Louisiana. He's a member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. And Congressman, you know, I love talking about infrastructure, and I want to talk to you a bit about that. But I kind of want to talk to you first about racial justice in America. We saw the verdict in Georgia. And on the heels of last year's verdict, or this year's verdict in Minneapolis, it does seem to suggest that while we may not be at a point where justice is done for killing unarmed black people, there may be some accountability that is to be had.
Certainly, there was a recognition of the need to have justice. Clearly, one verdict doesn't change the issue that our country faces. There's a tremendous problem in our criminal justice system. This was, in fact, a victory, but it was so outlandish. It was so clear. The evidence was so clear that it would have been very difficult to come back with anything but a guilty verdict. However, we've seen this before, which denotes that we still have a very long way to go. We should pause on this victory, but recognize there's so many others, the Rittenhouse and others that still require the kind of careful attention and recognition that our criminal justice system is severely flawed.
Yeah, you said it was so outlandish and so clear, and it was to so many people, and yet there was always a chance that this was not going to result in a conviction. And part of the reason that it did was because there's video. We still live in a world where if there isn't video and one group says one thing and others say another thing, the population still tends to believe that unarmed black people don't get killed for just doing nothing.
And that's a fact. And the reality is, if you had reversed the roles, if that had been three African Americans chasing a white gentleman in a neighborhood and shot him because they thought he was doing something, even though he was unarmed, had no items that suggested that he'd stolen something, there wouldn't have even been media about it. There would have been a conviction in the media and a conviction in the court, and it probably would not have had the level of deliberation. Therein lies the real issue of why the racism and criminal justice reform needs to be fixed. There's no question. And when I say outlandish because this should have been something that was very easy. Yet, for many people, it wasn't. And if the roles reversed, it would have been a totally different day.
Let's talk a little about infrastructure, because you are on the Infrastructure Committee. How will you and Democrats effectively message? I mean, this infrastructure bill is massive. It's huge. It's a big deal. It should have been bipartisan from the beginning. It was only marginally bipartisan, which always confuses me, because I grew up thinking infrastructure was as Republican as a thing as it is Democratic. But the point is, you're going to have to message how big a deal it is and how it improves people's lives in this country. How are you going to do that?
We're talking about $1.2 trillion. We're talking T's, not B's. When you talk about what this means for America, what this means for Louisiana, some $7 billion to come to my state to address issues like clean water and removing lead pipes, like looking at the some 25% of critical infrastructure facilities that are in imminent danger if we don't do something about it. These are life-changing, once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. This is the largest infrastructure impact for the country since the creation of the interstate system under President Eisenhower. That's a really big, big deal. So when you talk about those who say, oh, it's not enough in it, or it should have been more, listen, at the end of the day, we would all love to have it bigger, to have it more robust, to deal with greater issues. But we're talking about trillions of dollars, and we're talking about trillions of dollars that will not only impact Democrats, it's going to impact Republicans, Democrats, people all over the country, people who voted for me and didn't, people who voted for President Biden and didn't. Of all things, infrastructure should never be considered partisan. I'm proud of the work that those Republicans that did, albeit all too few, come along with us. Senator Cassidy in the Senate from my home state did an incredible job at helping fashion the final passage of a bill that we should all be very proud of and will yield great benefits for many years to come.
Congressman, good to see you this morning. We appreciate the time you've taken. Democratic Representative Troy Carter of Louisiana.